Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Awakened Spirit channel. My name is Melanie, and if you're new here, I'm a lifelong medium and I teach highly sensitive, neurodivergent, intuitive, and empathic individuals how to own their sensitivity as their greatest gift. And today we're going to be talking about what a spiritual awakening is, that experience, and also what types of spiritual awakening experiences culminate and happen, and the types of spiritual awakenings. So let me just pull up my notes so that I can cover all of the bases here. So, what is the spiritual awakening experience and why is it happening to you is a very good question, right? And so, what you need to understand is that a spiritual awakening occurs when you have a profound realization that you are not just a body and you start to experience the world of spirit, and maybe you have a profound spiritual experience. And for a lot of people, it happens like that. They have a simultaneous awakening or they have a facilitated awakening. And for some people, like myself, we're kind of born and we're very aware of energy. My personal journey with this is that it was a lot. It was really overwhelming, and I actually really shut down my intuitive gifts. So again, it can be something that is, a lot of stimuli to manage in our world. But a spiritual awakening experience is when you just have this profound realization that you just are not a body and that there's more to life than just waking up, eating, showering, going to work, chasing after material things, sleeping, and starting all over again. And so the other thing that you might notice during a spiritual awakening is you might start to see or sense or experience spirit and energy. And that could be in the form of communication, so telepathic communication. That could be in the form of seeing energy in colors and shapes. And some people come to me and they say, "Oh, I saw this, shadow figure." And so, yeah, that's it. That is a spiritual experience where you're experiencing spirit, and other people have these very profound experiences. And I'll tell you a personal story. I had this moment when I started to reopen my intuitive abilities that I was sitting in the bathtub, and I will never forget this. I was just going through it. I was having a really emotional day. I was really overstimulated and I was meditating, and I brought some crystals with me and I was sitting in the tub. I always have my little amethyst that I like to sit and meditate with, and I like to sit in sessions with. So I probably had this one with me, and I was sitting in the tub, and all of a sudden, I started to see the stars and the galaxy and the planets with my eyes open. And there was this moment where that veil between the physical world and the limits of the physical world was kind of lifted. And I had a profound experience where I was kind of, interacting with this energy that was just pure unconditional love. And I could tell which star systems I felt very called to. I could tell where I'd kind of been on my spiritual journey in the scheme of existence. And it was just this very intense moment where I had a very visceral experience. And it's not that I haven't had other moments like that, but for some people, that can be startling, to say the least, when you think that the only thing that exists in our reality is the physical. Um, and so usually what happens after you have a spiritual awakening is you just can't go back to believing that the world is as it plainly seems. You can't go back to going about your day, going through the motions, doing things that don't feel fulfilling, having relationships that feel deeply. I don't know why my nose itches so much. Um, having these, relationships that are very surface level and very mundane. It you just can't go back after that. You just know that there's something more. You feel this deep call to a purpose and to find meaning in life. And a lot of times that comes into this, experience of the spiritual experience and spiritual awakening, where you start seeking out information and you want to learn more about what that is, and you want to develop those gifts or learn how to turn them on and off or just understand them better. And I know that there's so many of us out there that are highly sensitive and have the empath experience, which is the experience of interacting with people and really taking on their emotions, or being in a crowded room and feeling the intensity of everybody's energy in that room. And a lot of times that leads to us isolating and feeling overwhelmed and feeling like we can't be in the world as much as we want to. And so, oftentimes what happens is if these abilities simultaneously awaken or they start to develop more, we search for answers, how to manage that, how to understand it, how to, make it so that we can continue to live our lives in this world where there's so much information and stimuli coming at us at all times, but also learn more about ourselves as sensitive, intuitive people. And so this brings me to the next point, which is categories of spiritual awakening. What types of spiritual awakenings are there? And so I would say there's a couple of different types. There's a gradual awakening, there's a facilitated awakening, there's an abrupt awakening. And some people like to say that they're psychic, they're born psychic, and a lot of us are born with our intuitive gifts really awakened. And some people have, families where the kind of line of the family, there's very uh, strong connection to spirit, and their great grandmother and their grandmother and their mom, they're all involved in this, and so they get a lot of validation for those gifts. But for a lot of us, we are open and awake in the world at a very young age, but we're surrounded by people that don't understand that sensitivity or that intensity that we experience. So a lot of times we shut it down because we're told that we need to grow a thicker skin, or we need to toughen up, or that what we're experiencing isn't real. And that is a very real thing for a lot of us. And I certainly believed for a very long time that I was over dramatic and crazy, because that is what I was told, is that I was being over dramatic. I need to grow a thicker skin. But really, I was experiencing the world of spirit. The other thing I heard a lot growing up was that I had a wild imagination. And man, was that wrong? Okay, so let's talk about the types of awakening. So there's a gradual awakening where you're born with these gifts turned on, and you either don't have or do have assistance in managing those gifts. So that's kind of what I was just describing, where there's kind of a family lineage where others in the family are involved in spiritual practice, or they are in tune, or they kind of have more of a developed sense of how to be in the world as a highly sensitive, intuitive person. And in that is the case, you kind of get a lot of validation and are able to grow into those abilities and have some people to validate what you see and experience, but also some people to, surrounding you in your family that can tell you how to really manage that and what works for them and what their perceptions of spirit are. And that's very comforting and validating and can really grow that. So the way I usually see that is, you're born with certain intuitive gifts turned on. And as you get a little bit older, a lot of times more open and awaken. And the second part to that is you could have a gradual awakening, but not have that validation from the people around you, and not have a community of people that understand what you're going through. And oftentimes that leads us to being afraid of what we experience, shutting down what we experience, and validating what we experience. And for a lot of people, it's, thinking that you're crazy, thinking that there's something wrong with you because you see or hear or feel or sense spirit. Not to even mention and go into like Hollywood and the Hollywood dramatization of spirit, which really paints this picture of spirit being very scary and being very uncontrollable, which I have not come across anything in my lifetime that has been anything similar to some of the stuff that I've watched in horror movies and in The Exorcism. And so with the probably, couple thousand clients that I've worked with, I've never been in a space where I've seen an energy and gone, call the priest, they need an exorcism. But the thing is, when you don't have people around you that understand spirit, it can be very scary because you're in it by yourself. You don't know what's going on. You don't know why you're experiencing it. And if you were me as a child again, I used to have this experience where people would come and talk to me at night, and I was terrified as a little kid. I was so scared, and I would stay up all night, and I would tell my parents, there's people in my room, they're touching me, and they did. Spirit did. They really wanted to communicate. They knew that I could see them, they knew that I could feel them. And it scared me because my parents, kind of reinforced that there was no monsters in my room, and so I thought that they were monsters. Little did they know that they were ancestors, but sometimes it's one and the same, right? Depending on what type of family you have. All right, the second type of spiritual awakening that can occur is a facilitated awakening. So this is something that kind of comes on and develops. And I would say that, when you have a practice like meditation, or you have a, yoga practice, or a breathwork practice, or maybe some other type of, like Tai Chi practice, things come on and develop over time and start to open up more through that practice. And the other part to this can be a facilitated awakening through an altered state with or without the assistance of some type of substance. So a lot of people go about their lives and think everything is one way. And then they, you know, take some mushrooms or do some acid, or have some other type of psychedelic experience. And all of a sudden, they're very open and aware of spirit. And yes, that is definitely a way to experience spirit. But a lot of times, what happens in those experiences is that the substance that you take takes you so far out of the body that when you come back into the body, it's hard to integrate that information and to take that information and to use it to empower yourself. It just becomes this very out of body experience. It's difficult to integrate into your day-to-day life. So a lot of times what happens is people start to use substances to reach those states often, and they kind of override their body and a little bit leave the body, which is why sometimes you see people that take a lot of psychedelics that are very out of touch with reality, because they've really energetically, as a spirit, left their body to kind of be in the spirit world. So another way you can reach an altered state is through meditation, or through chanting, or through breath work. And those are very visceral and also very honoring of the body way. It's a very honoring of the body way to move into a state of facilitated awakening without really leaving the body behind. The next part about this might be that there's a third type of spiritual awakening, and that would be what I like to call the abrupt awakening. And these are the hardest to deal with because they come on out of nowhere. Oftentimes they blindside people. And a lot of the people that I work with that have gone through an abrupt spiritual awakening are just really in it. This is the best way to describe it. They're really in it because they've been seeing the world and experiencing the world in one way for so long. And then all of a sudden, everything is just blown wide open. The doors to awareness are just blown open. And they're like, holy crap. I don't know what's up and down. I don't know my name. I don't know what's happening. I'm having this experience. I'm having this feeling. I'm having this interaction. I think I'm going crazy. And it's just such an intense experience. So a lot of times the way that these things come on is through a near-death experience, or a life-altering experience, or a major trauma. It can be, a major trauma such as the death of a loved one, or maybe through an experiencing kind of in a way where maybe like where you're experiencing something that just is so intense that it all of a sudden blows those doors open. That's what I'm trying to say. The thing about an abrupt spiritual awakening that can be most unsettling is that all of a sudden you're seeing, hearing, feeling, and experiencing spirit. And most people that I've worked with, and myself included, when all of the things that I'd kind of been shutting down turned back on all of a sudden, people can think they're losing their minds. And unfortunately, you oftentimes end up in the care of a medical professional who's not aware of spirit and can't see and understand energy. And not to say that there aren't real illnesses out there in the world that need medical attention. I'm just saying that a lot of people end up in a therapist's office or in a doctor's office, and they're immediately given antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication and all sorts of things because they're having these experiences. And I've worked with a number of people that have experienced a range of awakenings, but I find the abrupt spiritual awakening to be one of the most difficult ones for my clients because they experience such a profound sense of isolation in that. And it can feel like your whole world's turned upside down and you don't really know where to go with that. So those are the three different types of spiritual experiences and spiritual awakening experiences that can occur. Um, and I hope that I've really given you a good idea about what a spiritual awakening is. And I also just wanted to let you know that if you are experiencing a spiritual awakening, or if you are in the process of developing that, or really intending to open up those gifts, that it is quite a process. So be gentle with yourself. The number one thing to remember is that you're not crazy and that there's so many people out there in the world that are just like you. They're highly sensitive, they're highly emotional. They see and perceive energy, they hear energy, they feel energy, they sense energy, they know things, they have that profound sense of deja vu. And it's really important to know that there's people in the world to connect with. You're not alone in this. And there's so many people that have been on this path. And I hope that the experience of the spiritual awakening for you is one where you feel very empowered and enlivened versus going into like a dark night of the soul, which can happen when you wake up a lot of times, because kind of what's happening is that you start to open up your awareness, and so much energy that you've been holding in the body that has been keeping you from being aware of spirit has to release. So oftentimes going into kind of that cocoon stage or that isolation stage where you're reassessing is very integral in the spiritual awakening process. The last thing that I wanted to mention was, why do we wake up? Why do we have a spiritual experience and go into a spiritual awakening? Well, the fact of the matter is that we ourselves in our human bodies here right now are both a body and a spirit. We've gone over this. And also, your spirit has kind of an idea of what you need this lifetime. And so sometimes the body and the spirit are a little bit disconnected, and you can't really, totally tune into what the spirit is planning, what your higher self is planning, what the universe or source is planning. And um, when you have a spiritual awakening experience, usually that means that you as a soul are ready to be awake in the world. And so if you're having this experience and you don't know why, you weren't intending to have a spiritual awakening, you need to know that on a soul level, for your soul growth this lifetime, you decided that it was time to wake up. And I know this might be really tough, but in the long term, you can learn to understand, develop, and own your sensitivity as your greatest gift. There's so many resources out there in the world. There's so many different modalities that you can explore. There's so many ways to be empowered in this. So if you're feeling like you're kind of in that space where you're like, oh, why? Just know that there is a bigger plan. There's a bigger plan. Part of your soul was ready to open up this ability, and you're going to be okay. Thank you so much for being here. Please feel free to check out all of my other videos that have to do with spiritual awakening, being neurodivergent, being highly sensitive, how to access your divine gifts, how to access your divine magic. I have a couple of videos listed. Please feel free to like and subscribe. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok. Everything will be linked below in the description. I also want to talk for a minute about my services. So I do readings and healings and channeled healings and animal communication and a lot of different stuff on a one-to-one basis. I also do a mentorship called the Empowered Empath, and it is for highly sensitive, neurodivergent, intuitive, and empathic souls who are wanting to take their spiritual abilities and their spiritual practice to the next level. I also work with spiritual entrepreneurs that are ready to take their business to the next level. And a lot of times, what we work on in this mentorship space is we work on taking all of your spiritual information that hasn't fully integrated in the body and bringing it all the way in and embodying it so that you can really embody your magic. I also run a women's program called Awakening Sanctuary, and it is a women's intuitive development program where you'll learn how to access your psychic gifts, how to turn them on and off, how to work with spirit guides, and how to be in the world as a highly sensitive individual and be the eye of the storm and not become that energy, and just instead be empowered in your sensitivity. And a lot of times, what that means is giving you the tools so that you can manage energy that you're perceiving and really separate yourself from the energy that you're experiencing so you don't have to take it on. It's a very, very empowering program. You get to work one-on-one with myself and my business partner, Olivia Ray. And we also teach somatic practice and nervous system regulation in that space. So it's very versatile. It covers all the bases. It takes care of the spiritual and the body. You get one-on-one support with us. This is not like a program where we kind of throw you in and give you tools and open your third eye and say, okay, good, go on. It's a community of women that are highly supportive of each other, and you'll be working one-on-one with myself and Olivia in one-on-one personal sessions to help you develop these and own these intuitive, empathic, psychic gifts. And I hope that you get a chance to check it out. So that will also be linked below. And again, thank you so much for being here. I love all of you very deeply. I have a few other free offerings, such as my Empath Survival Guide, Discover Your Intuitive Abilities quiz. So I'm going to link all of that below. And I would love to hear from you. So feel free to drop a comment. And I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, evening, afternoon.